Last Bosh, the one with the honors of making what turned out to be the game-winning shot. The Mavs had another chance at it, but it was his shot that stood. Finished with 18, had a bad first half, got poked in the eye again. Moving forward, do you trust Chris Bosh in a clutch situation?
No. Sorry, no, I do not.
Was he clutch last night?
Let me say, I was extremely impressed last night that Chris Bosh had gone completely south mentally in games 1 and 2 of the finals and in the first half of last night's game. And Dwayne Wade yelling at him in huddles to shoot these shots like you mean it. And with 39 seconds left, he's the third option on what turned out to be a huge play in that game, and he stepped into a mid-range jump shot and made it. And I give him high marks for that. But from here on, pressure mounting, I don't trust him. I still don't think he's the mentally toughest guy. We're talking about in the clutch now. Now, the point is, no good player in the history of basketball will get more wide-open shots than Chris Bosh will have because of his two teammates. He's got to make 4 or 5 of them in the game for Miami to win. Those are not what I call clutch shots. This turned out, as you point out, to be the game winner. But if it's a do or die, if it's a walk-off, there's no way I want the ball.
In that moment,
yeah,
it was
clutch. I think he didn't have time to think about it because he didn't really expect as the third option that he would be shooting that ball. And all of a sudden, LeBron whipped it sideways to him, and he went up and shot it without thinking.
As far as third options goes,
yeah.
he's probably one of the greatest third options ever in the history of the game. And you got to remember, he's never really going to have that opportunity with the two guys that he plays with on the same team. You're talking about an all-star for several years for the Toronto Raptors, a guy that came up big in the Olympics a couple of years ago. So he can make those shots. Dismal as far as his shooting percentage in this series so far. But at the end of the day, you're an NBA player, you're an all-star, you're going to make some of those shots. I don't know if I use the word depend, but he can make some of those, which is evidenced by last night.
Yeah, he can make some of those. This guy's a 5-time All-Star. The past 5 years, this guy has averaged right around 22 points, and he's shooting right below 50% from the field. So he's going to hit half of his shots. And it's kind of ironic to me how earlier this year we talked about for him to be able to help LeBron and D-Wade win a championship, he had to have more of a post presence. Well, last night he wasn't in the post when he hit this shot. He's a guy that has post game. He can play on the blocks. He's a guy that can control the ball. He's a guy that has perimeter game. I would trust him to take that shot all day long. But as both of you alluded to, he's not going to be called to do that because he's not that guy in this city. But he was called to do that in Toronto, where he did a good job of doing so as being the only player on that team. Yeah, I have no problem with Chris Bosh taking the last shot if the ball ends up in his hand.
The thing I gave him a lot of credit for last night is if you saw the interview after the game with Hannah Storm, that eye was really bothering him. It was actually tearing up on him. So for him to play through that with the moxie that he did and really not complain, I give him a little bit of credit.
Okay, but he said he got the eye flushed out after the game, so I think he was crying a little bit because it had gotten drained.
The eye, I'm upset about the eye because when you lay on the ground to miss a possession up the court because of your eye, there's a problem. If your ankle, your knee, or your foot is hurt, that's one thing. You can't get up the court. But if you were able to get up and come back on the court, you should have done that in the first place. He allowed his team to go down the court without him.
I agree.
On that side of the court.
Which is why I've called him Bosh Spice.
I understand.
But not today.
I understand.